hard sell right there.
So just so you guys don't have to submit to that speech, I just picked out the fun clip. But here's Morning Joe, and I'm not a big fan of Morning Joe, but I am a big fan of, say, Steve Ratner, who's their finance guy. And Steve Ratner is great. And Steve Ratner does a quick fact check of Trump's whole economic speech that we just watched a clip of. This is going to get fun.
During his speech in North Carolina yesterday, Donald Trump made several false claims about the economy and what he accomplished during his time in office. Joining us now with a fact check, former Treasury official, Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Ratner. Steve, at the Southwest Wall, great to see you. Let's dive right in. First up, here is what Donald Trump said yesterday about the economy during his administration.
We had the strongest economy in history. There's never been a country that had an economy like us. I gave Harris and Biden an economic miracle, and they quickly turned it into an economic nightmare.
Steve, this is an oft-repeated claim by Donald Trump that he had the strongest economy of all time, and now he's adding he handed Joe Biden an economic miracle. What's the truth about that?
Not only did he not have the strongest economy of all time, he didn't even have the strongest economy of the last two presidents, himself and Joe Biden. And so let's take a look at some of the facts here. First, the best measure of an economy is its growth rate. GDP growth rate. And so when you compare the two, and I have adjusted out COVID in fairness to both presidents, although you see it doesn't actually.
In all fairness, too, I don't think we should adjust out COVID because he was president and how he handled COVID would affect that. And had he done a good job on COVID, he'd probably still be president. But
change the picture. Trump grew his economy at a rate of about 2.6% a year, which is actually not a bad rate. And that excludes COVID. Biden grew his economy, has grown so far his economy at 3.5% a year. If you take out the effects of COVID, the disparity is even greater. So I've done this as honestly as I can do, and no matter how you do it, it doesn't come out in Trump's favor, even against Biden, let alone against 5,000 years of other economies around the world. Secondly, you can look at jobs. That's a very important thing in an economy, obviously, to Americans. And again, I've adjusted out the effects of COVID. 182,000 jobs on average a month created by Trump. 271,000 jobs on average created by Biden. Again, if you take out COVID, the disparity is far greater. So that is one of his most preposterous claims.
Yeah, the numbers don't lie, and he has made that point. We were cooking along, and then COVID came.
That's for COVID.
What was that?
That's very interesting to me because when they adjust out COVID, it gets worse for Trump rather than better.
No. It gets better. It gets better for Trump if you adjust out COVID when all the jobs were lost. He's taking it out. So the lighter color numbers, the lighter red and the lighter blue, that's COVID. Yeah. That's with COVID. So when he's showing these charts, the lighter red, if you factor in COVID, that was his GDP growth, 1.4%. If you factor in COVID. If you factor it in for Biden, because Biden's first few months were with COVID and we had low GDP growth, but still, Biden did way better. It was more stable, even with inheriting a disaster, right? If you add in the jobs figure here, I'll go back to that chart where you can see it a little bit better here.
Yeah, that chart's hard to.
And let me take that off. So, if you take out COVID, that last year of Trump's presidency, he averaged about 182,000 jobs a month, which is okay. It's about what Obama left him. Only Obama did a little bit better. But, yeah, he basically inherited a great economy from Obama. It tanked during COVID. He tanked it worse during COVID because he didn't do anything about the actual pandemic. Didn't do anything that pushed in the vaccine and all that shit. And so, yeah, economy tanked. He lost jobs if you factor in COVID. He averaged 60,000 jobs lost per month for his presidency. As for Biden, if you take out COVID, the first 6 months that Biden was president, Biden's averaging 271,000 jobs a month. But if you factor in that first 6 months of COVID, because Biden had to replace all those lost jobs, that's what it was. Right? It would be 379. So Biden's fucking crushing it. Right? So that's why he was...
When you look at that, like, with COVID factored in,
yeah,
those numbers become even more mind-blowing, honestly.
Right. So that's why I keep saying that joke. when the Republicans go, "Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?" Yeah. 4 years ago, we lost what 500,000 or 600,000 people had died in this country from COVID. We had the worst COVID response than any other fucking developed nation in the world. We had more deaths per capita, I think, than any nation in the world.
Right.
You know, they were building mass graves in fucking New York.
Yeah, I know. I was right. There was a stadium down the street from where I was living at the time that they actually were using, like, they had like moving trucks and bodies in it, it was crazy.
They were throwing bodies in freezer trucks so they wouldn't rot and spread infection. I mean, it was bad. I mean, don't forget that shit. I mean, when they tell you that. But let's get into some more of this, because Trump just lied. So I just want to get to the summation here.
All right, let's move on to energy. This is former President Trump talking yesterday about American oil production and energy independence.
See, now, wait, I love Josh Radnor. Like, if he were a student in my class, he'd be an A student. Look at his chart. Trump lie number 2. More on energy. And then he's got the fucking charts laid out. I'm like, that's so perfect.
Oil production and energy independence.
We were energy independent 4 years ago. Think of it. Today, we're getting energy from Venezuela in the form of tar.
Steve, what do the numbers show?
Well, first of all, we were never energy independent under Donald Trump. In fact, we really haven't been energy independent going back until sometime before 1950. You can see that the amount of oil imports that we had during Trump did in fact decline. This is part of a long progression that goes back to the mid-2000s. It's nothing that he particularly did. It continued under Biden.
But I also want to factor this into the one thing where I think Ratner, this is where I'd have to grade him down a little bit, is why are we now all of a sudden taking out the effects of COVID? Because remember, in 2019 and 2020, where this drops, especially 2020, what was going on? COVID. Everybody was at home. No one was driving. Gas prices were down to like $1.50. Why? Because no one was buying gas.
That was also a time when OPEC had met, and Russia and the Middle East were all trying to like piss all over each other, and they were going crazy. In addition to COVID, there was a lot of screwed up stuff kind of happening over there with OPEC as well, which obviously are going to affect these numbers. Anybody who was like buying anything oil related through the market could tell you, know.
So if you factor in COVID, he really didn't do that much for energy independence. Plus, this was a trend going on for a long time that started under Obama to try and make us energy independent. And part of it got pushed under Obama because that's what Hillary Clinton wanted to do. And so when she was Secretary of State, that's what she pushed really hard for. And everybody forgets this. Hillary Clinton, one of her big ultimate goals, her checklist things to do before I die, other than be president, which didn't happen, was she wanted to dismantle OPEC. Why? Because she started her career working for Carter, and Carter lost his election because OPEC strangled us in the 70s and racked up inflation. And that's how Reagan won. So she hated OPEC. So we'll just get more into this, but I just thought that was interesting.
And lo and behold, the first time we have been energy independent as it applies to oil was in 2023 under Biden's presidency, when we actually exported a bit more oil than we imported. Now, Trump has hung up on Venezuela. I'm not exactly sure why. He usually likes dictators. In this case, he seems to not like it as much. It is a fact, as Trump said, that Venezuelan oil is bad oil. It's very heavy. It's very polluting. But look what happened to Venezuelan oil imports over the last 7.5 years. Under Trump, we averaged 10.3 million barrels of Venezuelan oil a day coming into this country. Under Biden, we're down to 1.7 million barrels a day of Venezuelan oil. So the idea that somehow Biden is the one who brought in all this Venezuelan oil is absolutely directly contradicted by the numbers.
As is often the case, exactly the opposite is true of what Donald Trump says. In fact, we are not running.
So That was his big economic policy speech. Tic tacs and basically saying that everything Biden did, he did.
You know what I can't help but wonder? Is he a liar or is he stupid, or is the answer just yes?
Yes.
And I'm actually trying to be a jerk when I say that, but like does he actually think that he's done those things, or that under his time these things happened?
I think he's one of those guys where he'll do the mental gymnastics to try and convince himself of it. And part of him wants to believe it, but I also think part of him knows deep down that it's all bullshit. But he can't ever admit that, because then he'd have to admit he's a loser. And he can't ever do that.
Somehow,
or his ego would collapse.
Somehow own psychology or whatever, he sort of convinces himself that all of these wonderful things happened under him, even though, like, they're clearly...
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever known somebody who was abused and they're narcissistic, that tends to be a normal thing for them. Like, they'll tell you, I mean, like, their parent will have abused them for years, and they'll tell you how great their parent was. Because they can't live in a world where that's not true. But they won't, but like, you'll have a drink with them, and then all of a sudden they'll open up about all this shit, and you're like, whoa, so your dad was a scumbag. No, my dad was the greatest guy ever. Doesn't sound like it.
Right.
But they have to spin it that way because they can't believe it because of their ego, that it was something negative. So, I mean, it's like Trump's like that. Like, he knows it's bullshit fundamentally, but at the same time, he can't believe that. So he'll hold both contradictory ideas in his head at the same time. I think that's how it goes. I mean, it's not ultra genius, but, that's his talent.